According to the CDC, an estimated 8% of children in the U.S. are affected by food allergies. That's about 1 in 13 children, the equivalent of 2 kids per classroom. Food allergy symptoms are most common in babies and children, but they can appear at any age. For more, let's bring in Dr. Daryl Joffrey. He's a celebrity nutritionist, gut health expert, and author of Get Off Your Sugar. More on that in just 1 second. So, doctor, what's the difference between a food allergy and a food sensitivity?
Well, food allergies are an immediate response. So in other words, we eat a specific food, and then like say that's like a peanut, for example, and then the body recognizes that as a toxin, a poison, as non-self. So what it does is it ramps up its immune system. It creates antibodies to attack that food because it wants to break it down. It wants to get it out of the body before it causes more damage. So the response of that is the body's going to get inflamed, inflammation. It's going to swell. You can get other symptoms like hives and rashes on your skin, but more serious symptoms like labored breathing and one of the worst, an anaphylactic reaction. Now, food sensitivities, on the other hand, are a little bit more tricky because they don't happen right away. Sometimes they can happen 3 days later or not at all. That's why we call food sensitivities a hidden source of inflammation. This is why it's so important that we look to the gut, because the symptoms tend to be more gut related. Things like bloating, constipation, diarrhea, gut pain. Those are the things that we typically see more with food sensitivities. And that's why we can't do things like elimination diets. They don't work. We have to test to really know if a food sensitivity is present or not.
I was just going to jump in there. So, doctor, what kind of tests can you take to make this difference between a sensitivity and an allergy?
Well, a food allergy, you're going to pretty much know because you're going to get that immediate response. In fact, most of these people are carrying around EpiPens for them because they know that they have that allergen or they know that they have the allergic response. But for a food sensitivity, what I love to use with my clients is called an MRT food sensitivity test. That stands for mediator release test. And what that means in English is that when we eat food, we're actually testing not is that food causing an allergic reaction to your body, but is that food causing an inflammatory response to your body? We have to understand you're not what you eat, you're what you digest, absorb, and assimilate. So when we eat these foods, we're not breaking them down. So for example, one of my tests when I did mine, we're measuring 170 different foods and chemicals. So we're really measuring everything. Garlic came up on my test. So here you are going to tell an Italian guy he can't eat garlic for 3 months? Yes, if you want to be healthy. So what we do in that time is we lower inflammation in the gut. We get things more balanced. We heal ourselves. So 3 months later, we can add that food back in, and then it typically is okay at that time.
So can a food sensitivity or allergy be mistaken for other illnesses?
Absolutely. I think this is one of the biggest problems we have. You know, so many people are sick and they're sick all the time and they can't figure it out, even when they're eating healthy because of that reason. You know, we're getting different symptoms, like I mentioned before, whether it's a skin rash or something in our gut. And it's not something that we think of. We're not thinking of foods as the actual hidden source. And even doctors are doing that. You know, they're not going to the food. They're not testing the right things. So again, whenever we have a specific symptom, we have to think outside of the box. We have to actually test. And that's my mantra. Test, don't guess. Look to the gut. Hippocrates said it best. It's the cause of all disease. And when you do that testing, you're going to uncover what your true sources of food sensitivities are and those hidden sources of inflammation in your body.
So let's say you don't have the ability to have these tests. Let's say your insurance won't cover it. You can't afford it. What can you do for yourself at home? Like, can you make a daily list of what you're eating and then try and assess how what you're eating may show up in your symptoms and then exclude them?
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. In fact, I do that with all my clients before we even start. We do a 3-day food diary because I want to see exactly what foods you're eating and then what response is that having in your body, whether that's a physical symptom or an emotional symptom. Maybe we're feeling anxious. Maybe we're feeling depressed. Maybe we're feeling tired. So I think that's a really important thing to do because we can make that correlation. But there are typical foods that we have to look out for. You know, the big ones, things like milk. Milk is such an inflammatory drink for most children. In fact, it's the #1 allergy in children. And when children drink that, it's the casein in that milk. There's 20 times more casein in cow's milk than there is in human milk. And that casein, it's linked to certain causes of cancer. Plus, what it's going to do is going to wreck the gut. It causes leaky gut, lots of mucus. So that's one that we want to avoid. Another one would be peanuts. Like I mentioned before, you know, many people think that the protein in the peanuts is causing the reaction, and that's definitely a part of it. But the hidden source that people don't talk about a lot is that peanuts are loaded with mold. Mold, things like aflatoxin, it's a cancer-causing fungus. And what happens is when you eat these peanuts, which have all this mold in it, and what they do is they take like all the moldy peanuts, they mash that up into the peanut butter because we can't see it. So we're eating this, and the body, when you ingest it, it attacks that mold and creates inflammation. And there's other typical ones, things like eggs, wheat and gluten,
Right. Yep.
soy, fish,
Got
shellfish.
it.
Those are the ones we got to watch out for.
Right. Just in 10 seconds, what's the biggest reason you give people for, getting sugar out of their diet?
Oh, that's a great one. You have to add in foods that strengthen your body. I want you to think green juice, green smoothies. These are the core of a strength eating diet. They're loaded with minerals like magnesium. And when you're addicted to sugar, like I was for so many years, the biggest thing is a magnesium deficiency. Add those foods in, the good will outweigh the bad. Watch those cravings go away in a few weeks.
Dr. Daryl Joffrey, thanks for your expertise.
Such a pleasure. Thank you so much.